Hey, today I'm going to go over with you the lesson on etiquette and place setting. They're two different things, but they're all rolled into one. So try and keep them separate. I have to apologize because in the picture of me you see on the screen there, my right hand is here and my left hand is here. So that turns things around a little bit. It's good for lefties. But let's take a look at what we're doing here. Okay, so good. Um, at the end of this, you will need to submit to me two things, each worth 300 points. Your plate cutouts. Now, I've started you on your plate cutouts already. You're going to need each of the things listed here: 11-inch dinner plate, 5-inch salad plate, 3-inch cup and saucer, 3-inch beverage glass, etc., etc., etc. 3 small forks, large fork, and a knife. And I'll give you a score, A, B, C, or D, according to how well you did those, how accurate your circles are. Um, I'm not concerned about accuracy for your spoons and forks. You just need to have them. But that's worth 300 points. And then for this test, you'll get either 0 points or 300 points. But you can keep taking it until you pass it, and then you get your 300 points. You have until the end of the semester to get both of these things done. All right, so let's get on with it, shall we? First of all, this green area represents your place setting area. And the first thing we're going to place is a napkin. Now, the word napkin is a very American term. Even in England, they don't use the word napkin. Um, they call it, well, let me tell you a story first. A friend of mine, when she was in high school, went to England with her band. And instead of staying at hotels, they stayed at host family homes. And they had dinner with the host families, and they sat around the table, and she had asked for a napkin. And the British people laughed at her and thought that was so funny. And she's like, what's so funny? I'm just asking for a napkin. Oh, they thought that was hilarious. Well, it turns out in England, in the United Kingdom, in Great Britain, a napkin is what you wrap around a baby's bum. We call it a diaper. So she was asking for a diaper, and that's why they thought it was funny. They call it in England a serviette. And I think the Spanish word, forgive my pronunciation, is servieta. So be aware that serviette is more common than the word napkin. Anyway, your napkin goes on the left there. That's this black rectangle here. Outside fork is for salads. It is a small fork. It looks like this. Next comes a larger fork, dinner fork. Looks like that. In the center is a dinner plate. Here's my dinner plate. Goes in the center. Now you'll notice there's an orange circle around here. That's because sometimes, especially during the holidays coming up, you will find a bigger plastic plate that goes underneath the dinner plate. And if you look at mine crumbled apart last year, so I don't have one. But I used to have one to demonstrate what it is. It's called a charger, but mine just sort of felt crumbled apart. It's plastic, and underneath it says not dishwasher safe, and it also says not for food. So all it is a bigger plate that goes underneath your dinner plate, and if you spill, it keeps your place setting clean. You don't see that very much outside of the holidays. Definitely in homes, and I don't know if I've ever, well, I have seen it in restaurants, but it's very rare. But anyway, that thing is called a charger. You will not need that for your place setting test. Then we have the knife. I want to point out to you that the cutting edge is toward the plate. Okay, it's not facing this direction. So this is the dull edge. This is the cutting edge. That's important that it be facing the right direction. It goes back to medieval times when having a knife at your table was thought of as a threat to the other guests, and by pointing the cutting edge in, it sends a message that you're there to eat dinner and not there to stab someone or something like that. Next comes the spoon, and to the right of the spoon is the cup and saucer. For our test, I don't have a cup and saucer, I just have a cup. So that goes on the outside. Above the cup and saucer is the beverage glass, and then to the left of the beverage glass is the water glass. It is the largest glass. Top left is a bread plate, and sometimes a bread plate has its own little knife with it, sometimes not. Now, this brings up an interesting point. A lot of you guys are going, what difference does it make? Who cares? Well, there's a lot of things that you will care about when you're a little bit older that you cannot see how they're important now. Just like when you were 2, you were taught to be potty trained, and you probably didn't see the value in that. But now that you're an adult, you see the value in being potty trained. So I'm going to teach you this, and someday maybe you'll see the value in it. But one of the earliest examples of how you might see value in this is in the next few years, or maybe currently, you will be invited to a wedding party, a wedding reception. And quite often when you go to a wedding, they put these setups at a big round table with 8 or 10 people at a table. And the problem is, next to your setup, there is a bread plate right here. And next to your bread plate is a water glass right here, because things are so tight. So it gets a little confusing as to which is which. And it's not uncommon for someone to reach over here. Weddings are usually in the summer, and they're hot sometimes, so people get thirsty. So they reach over here and grab a water glass. Well, guess what? You've grabbed your neighbor's water glass. And it's kind of embarrassing because 5 minutes later, when someone sits down at that spot, they're like, who's got my water glass? It's gone. Excuse me, sir, I think you have my water glass. It's really quite embarrassing. So you don't want to let that happen. So that's why it's important that you know your drinking utensils or glasses are on the right, your bread plate is on the left. If you do this with your hands, index finger up, then in front of you on your right is the letter D. That's for drinks. And on the left is the letter B. That's for bread. That's a little trick to help you remember this in case you forget everything else I taught you. Just do this with your fingers and don't do this. Was it the same or different? D. Yeah, that's the same. It doesn't matter. So index finger up. Anyway, D on the right, B on the left. Drinks on the right, bread on the left. All right, this is an informal setting. This will be the thing that I ask you to show me on your test as far as the place setting portion. There's 2 place settings, and you're going to do the informal and the formal. So to this, we're going to add sometimes I have gone to teachers' banquets, and you go in a big room, and there's these tables set up like this. But because there's hundreds of people that need to be served, they want to get done as quickly as possible. So the salad will be here waiting for you with the salad already in it. And in the center of the table will be the dressing, your drinks will be in the center, your bread and butter will be in the center. But that's your salad plate that'll be right there, usually with the salad already in it. Sometimes that happens. Or sometimes you might find at a restaurant or other dining situations, the salad will be right here. Because at a restaurant, remember, there's a server dedicated to you and 3 or 4 other tables. When you go to a banquet, there's not that many servers. So they have to adjust to make sure that they have the proper coverage. Excuse me. Okay, next, a soup spoon might be added. Now, a soup spoon, notice the size of the spoon, first of all. It is a big spoon, and that's so you can have your broth and your meat and your vegetables and your noodles all on one spoon. It's hard to get that on a small spoon. So a big spoon is a soup spoon. Please understand that. You won't pass the test if you don't know a soup spoon from a regular spoon, or a teaspoon, I should say. Now, what determines whether or not there's a soup spoon present is if you're having soup, there will be a soup spoon, formal or informal. I don't care if you're just having soup and that's it. There will be a soup spoon. If there's no soup, there won't be a soup spoon. Doesn't matter how fancy a restaurant or dining situation. If you go to a wedding, they usually don't have soup at weddings, but if you go to a wedding banquet and there's no soup, there's not going to be a soup spoon. Then outside of our two forks, we have a smaller fork, which is a fish fork, they call it, but it's for your appetizers. And when you do your place setting test with me, it's going to be the same size as a salad fork because I don't have any small appetizer forks. So just understand that it's an appetizer fork, even though it's not quite smaller than your salad fork. Dessert fork and spoon go at the top here. Now I have a story to tell you how this works. Okay. And because the direction these are going is important. It's very simple. Basically, Frida Fork comes from a long line of forks, and they're pretty well off. And Frida Fork's father, Freddie Fork, told her, whatever you do in life, stay away from the spoons. They're dirty, they're poor, they're dishonest, they live down there on the other side of the tracks. They're not good people. Stay away from spoons. And Sammy Spoon had a father too, and his father told him, stay away from them forks. Those are arrogant people. They think they're better than us. Yeah, they got a little bit more money, but they didn't come by it honestly, and they're not hardworking. They're just shallow, wealthy people, not good people. Stay away from them. Well, as luck would have it, Sammy and Frida fell in love, and they decided to elope one night. They each had a car, and they decided to meet on the boulevard. So Frida goes down to the end of the street, turns right, and waits for Sammy. Sammy goes down to the end of his street, turns left, and pulls up next to her. And as they pull up next to each other, they both lean out their driver's side windows and give each other a kiss before they run off to be married. Okay, notice that Frida didn't go to the end of the street, turn left, and back up. Sammy didn't go to the end of the street, turn right, and back up. That doesn't make sense. They both just went to the end of the street, turned left, and pulled up next to each other. Doesn't matter to me which one's on top. Either one will get you a passing score on your test, but they need to be facing the right direction in order for you to get a pass. All right, so here's what you need for your test. You need to know how to use a napkin. Well, let me show you how to use a napkin. Okay, towel is going to represent our napkin. When you sit down at a restaurant with a cloth napkin, as soon as you sit down, you're going to grab it, unfold it to the halfway point. See, this is still folded in half, and place it on your knee. If you're right-handed, it goes on your right knee, etc. I have been to restaurants, fine dining restaurants, where the maitre d' will seat you, and if you don't grab your cloth napkin right away, he's going to grab it and put it on your lap. I don't know about you, but I don't want strange men messing around my lap. So as soon as you sit down, grab a cloth with a cloth napkin. That's the sign that it's needs to go on your lap. Unfold it and put it on your lap. My wife does that with paper napkins, but she's a little bit more, I don't know what the word is than I am, but she's more of it. All right, you also need to know how to use a knife and fork to cut meat. Okay, there's two methods you can use, and I don't care which one you use. And I'm sorry, again, that this video is backwards, but it is. So that'll help you lefties out. But if you're a righty, the fork, there's two methods. One of them is the European method. The European method, you take your hand and put your fork so that your index finger is right on the curve of the fork and it faces away from you. You stab your meat with that, you take your knife, you cut, and you go straight to your mouth. You're not scooping, you're not doing strange articulations with your arm. Stab it, cut it, there. Now, it's pretty easy to do if you've practiced it, but if you've never done it, it's going to look pretty awkward the first time you try it. The point of that is don't wait until it's an important dining experience for you to start doing this. Practice it on a regular basis so that when you're out on that special evening, maybe it's a first date with somebody, maybe it's a job interview, that it's already habit and it's very easy for you to do. I know a lot of you guys are thinking, oh, I don't need any of this stuff. This is just stupid. I'm just going to eat at McDonald's the rest of my life. That may be the case, but it's better to be prepared. So when that evening or that luncheon event shows up, you're ready to go. All right. So anyway, that's the European method. Now the American method is different. You take your fork and you go across. You take three fingers. Your third finger goes on the bend of the fork. Spread your fingers out. Your thumb goes on the inside so that you're holding it like this. You stab your meat thusly. Cut again. On both of these techniques, there's always someone that wants to stick their knife in between the tines of the fork. Don't do that. You'll fail the test. It's not correct. So anyway, backing up, you stab your meat, you cut your meat, set your knife down on the edge of your plate, on the plate itself. Switch hands. Here I'm in my right hand. I do my eating. I switch back. This is the American or zigzag method. Now, neither of these methods is better than the other. You only need to show me one to pass the test. I use both of them depending on what I'm eating. If I'm eating a big old hunk of meat, I'm going to use the European method because it's bite after bite of meat, of steak, or whatever like that. If I'm eating a different kind of meal where there's a small piece of meat and lots of other things, I might use the American method because I'm going to cut a piece of meat, switch hands, use my right hand, maybe some potatoes, maybe some peas, maybe some of this, maybe some of that, maybe some of this, before I go back to cutting my meat. So I use both techniques according to whatever it is I'm eating at the time. Okay. You probably won't remember how to set a table outside of this class. And you probably won't remember which silverware. Let me back up just a little bit. These two first things, no, let me not go back. Sorry. Anyway, the first part of the video I showed you was about setting the table. These three things I'm sharing with you now are not about setting the table. They're about behavior at a dining event. All right, let me just emphasize that. So I showed you how to use a napkin, not when you're setting your table, but when dining. I showed you how to use a knife and fork when dining. And now I'm going to show you the rule of thumb for silverware. You may be at an event where there's lots of silverware, even more than I just showed you in the video. Don't panic. just remember this rule of thumb. Start on the outside, work your way in. Start on the outside, work your way in. Remember what I just showed you for the place setting? On the outside, you had a fish fork for appetizers. That's because appetizers come early. On the other outside, you had a soup spoon. That's because soup comes early. So start on the outside and work your way in. So if you're ever at the White House or something like that, and there's all kinds of silverware, you don't know where to start, don't say, oh, there's so much silverware, I don't know where to start. Because it's embarrassing for everybody to hear that. What you want to do is just start on the outside and work your way in. And there will be other dining experiences that you go to in which you're totally lost. Maybe it's eating shellfish, lobster, or crab, or there's ribs, or there's any number of specialty items that you're going to eat, and you may not know how to do that. Well, this is a little trick that I want you to know concerning behavior. That is, be aware of the host. Slow down and copy the host. Don't copy the person next to you. Don't copy the person across from you, unless they're the host. Think of it this way. If I say, come on, let's go out to lunch, I'm buying, and I take you to Krabby Bob's and you don't know how to do anything, and I'm the host, one of two things is going to happen. Either I'll know what I'm doing and you can copy me, or I'm in the same boat you are. And if I'm in the same boat you are, we'll learn together. Maybe we'll ask the server, I don't know. But it's not a big deal because we're both in the same boat. If you come to my house for a dinner party and you don't know, like, what do we do with the ribs? Should we use our hands? Should we use a fork? Just lay back a little bit and copy what the host does. Get where you can see the host. The host is whoever invited you to the dinner party. So if you've come to my house and I pull off a rib by hand and eat it by hand, and I say, here, we just throw the bones on the floor. The dogs get them. If I do that, that means I'm not too concerned about behavior. However, if I invite you to my house for dinner and we're eating ribs and I'm using a knife and fork, then you should do the same thing. Because after all, I'm the host. I'm the one that counts. All right. And in addition to these behavior questions, you'll be asked to do an informal and a formal setup. All right. Sample test at Chef McCarty SHS. I will put that link in Google Classroom, and I don't know if this is current or not, but there's that one as well. But check Google Classroom to know this, and that should be it.